bad news is that there's a 92.43% chance that I will not get into an Ivy League school or any other top-tier college for that matter. Neither will you. And that's just the stats. The good news is that neither of us need to worry too much about it. And in the next couple of minutes, I'm going to take you through why. In the past 100 years, our parents' parents, their parents, and even their parents have come to believe that a college education is going to guarantee us a successful career. We've come to believe in a miracle, a university with a lot of opportunities, diverse connections, and a passage to success. Well, all of those things I picked up from a college brochure. Now, in the same 100 years, the world as we know it has been through a radical transformation. Every single industry that impacts our lives has been disrupted at its root. Peter Thiel, in fact, distills disruption into 3 simple words: 0 to 1. Take the transport industry, for instance. Uberization has been able to put together technology, automated vehicles, and fast-moving transportation technology to make sure that in New York, a fleet of 9,000 autonomous vehicles will be able to take over all of the cabs in New York. To put that into perspective, it's the 14,000 cabs that they already own, plus the 13,000 yellow cabs that we keep hearing about in all the movies that we keep watching. But in the space of education, disruption has been slow. And while there has been some amount of change, it's been happening in small pockets, and there isn't too much of a systemic change. But there are a couple of examples that I do want to share with you, which are creating a wave in the education industry. Now, the school that's been threatening the position of the Ivy Leagues isn't UChicago or Stanford or Berkeley. The school with the lowest acceptance rate in the US is a school called the Minerva Schools with an acceptance rate of 1.9%. Now, what sets this school apart not just is its academic program, but the fact that they're ready to continuously experiment and change their academic model. And what's really cool, in my opinion, is the fact that their students get to live all over the globe throughout their 4-year curriculum. The next interesting organization that I read about is a program that's been running in Israel, in Herzliya actually. What they've done, they're using the concept of co-teaching. So they have professors and industry professionals working together, working with students over a 12-month program, which ends up in a 3-month startup accelerator. It's cool because every single student graduates with a startup that they're ready to launch. Another program that I learned about is called Osmosis. Now, they're working with the problem that in the US and actually all across the globe, the amount of academic curriculum that medical students need to work on is growing bigger and bigger every single day. And they're challenging and working on this problem in a very unique manner. What they've built is an online resource tool, complete with videos and multimedia resources, integrated with the medical curriculum. So they're taking these students through this curriculum in a manner that'll help each and every one of them. Now, this is really important because the dropout rate for medical students in the US itself is in tens of thousands. And this is particularly expensive for US colleges because if there are so many people dropping out, they're still putting in a lot of resources into the matter. So a program like this is actually reducing the dropout rate and making sure we have better quality doctors available to treat each and every one of us. Now, in India, there's 125 billion people who are ready to get into college, all of the college age level, right? but only 1 in 5 are actually going towards a post-secondary education. That's approximately 125 million, right? And the problem in all of this is that we need 8,000 more universities if we need to accommodate all of these people. And it doesn't stop there. It's a qualitative problem as well. The existing universities don't have resources robust enough to support all of these people. So they're producing suboptimal graduates who aren't ready for the workforce. And now that is a problem that threatens us. The number you see on screen is India's current GDP. It's been at an all-time low since 2014. So if we want to see a change in this number, can we continue changing education at the pace that we are? The answer is no. Will we need to pump in more resources and more people into recruiting people into post-secondary education? Yes. And is investing in brick-and-mortar college and university programs the right way to do so? I think the answer is obvious. If we want to create a real change, we're going to have to invest in more projects like Minerva and more projects like Osmosis. That's the only way we're going to see a legitimate change in the way we function. You're probably aware that 65% of the jobs of the future don't exist right now. 45% of the jobs that we currently hold so dear to us and make money from are going to be taken over by automation. Have a look at the chart. This chart is showing you the top 5 companies based on market capital in the past 15 years. A couple of interesting things to note here. In the past 15 years, the power shifted from a 100-year-old global conglomerate like GE to a company half its age, 50 years old, Apple. In the past 15 years, the number of tech companies changed from 1 to 5. In the past 15 years, the market capital of the company at the top increased by 43%. Now, if these aren't stats to prove to you that disruption is changing our life today, then I don't know what is. So, in my opinion, the 3 factors driving disruption are technology, connectivity, and diversity. And I learned about all of these 3 as I went through a series of experiences myself. And the people you see on screen might seem unrelated right now, but my experiences tell me otherwise. So, the picture at your left is of Chhavi Rajawat. She's the sarpanch of a village called Soda in Rajasthan. It's based in one of the most backward districts of Rajasthan, and she comes from a really well-educated background, and she's chosen to go back to this village to work in her ancestral home. Through my interaction with her, I learned about how she's using technology to set up solar generators in their village, how they're setting up bank branches in their village, all with the power of technology. I'm sure you all know about Noshir Kaka. He's the managing director of McKinsey & Company in India. Now, in the early 2000s, he predicted that the IT industry in India would be booming by now, and it did. But what he failed to predict was how artificial intelligence and automation would threaten the employment that it generated in the space of IT. The third point I want to talk about is something I learned and realized during a biology class in 10th grade. I know. So I realized that the theory of evolution as we know it has been shaped by 2 very important scientists. But those 2 never actually got to meet or discuss any of these ideas. So the picture that you see on the left, Charles Darwin, came up with the theory of evolution. But what he wasn't able to put forward was the factors that affected this. Most importantly, the concept of natural selection. On Across the Atlantic, Gregor Mendel was working on the concept of natural selection, but he had no idea about the concept of evolution. It's safe to say that a simple phone call would have connected the two and would have solved a lot of the problems that they were going through. My last point is about how diversity is greater than intellect every single time. I learned about this when a friend told me about a design thinking workshop that they conducted in their office a couple of months ago. What they tried was an experiment. They put together one team comprising of people from different backgrounds. They had artists, inventors, innovators, and students as well. Another team comprised of people who came from a similar kind of background. They put them to task and tested them on some simple but very quintessential corporate world problems. And the results that they found were astounding. What they found was that the team with the diverse population and diverse group of people outperformed the team from a similar kind of background every single time. They came up with the more innovative and more creative solutions, and that's a learning for me. So what does this mean for all of us? It means that the workforce of 2025, the workforce of 2050, is going to be different from anything that we've seen before. But we cannot predict the future. We definitely cannot predict the future of an industry. So all we can do is we can't make industries recession-proof. But what we can do is make individuals recession-proof. If we build on skills like critical thinking, if we build on skills like communication, we are guaranteeing that we will be ready for the future. My learning here has been simple. Don't drive looking into the rearview mirror. The past is not an accurate prediction of the future. So if we're going to drive looking backwards, we're going to crash at some point. So it's our job to keep looking forward and to keep working on equipping ourselves with the skills that we need for the future. And when we talk about success and failure, and if you're like me, then you've probably had a tumultuous relationship with failure. You're afraid of it. You think that it relates to every plan that went wrong, every idea that didn't work out. But look at the people on the screen. Steve Jobs was booted from his own company. Walt Disney was told he wasn't creative enough. And Milton Hershey's set up 3 candy companies before he came up with Hershey's. Now, here's where you and I would probably differ in opinion. You probably think that these were some of the failures of some of the most successful people in the world. I think that these were some of the successes of some of the most successful people in the world. For a really long time, we've come to think of success and failure as mutually exclusive. But what I've come to realize is that they don't exist without each other. Failure drives success. To be successful, we need to be determined, we need grit, we need to be power hungry, and we need to be innovative. But most importantly, we need a taste of failure. Failure is that one thing that's going to give us new opportunities for success. And the most successful people grabbed these opportunities by the collar and shook the success out of them. And that's why they're where they are today. So if we want to be successful, all we need to do is make use of all the failures that we have and use them as stepping stones to get where we want to get to. In fact, today it's almost more important or equally important to visit a museum of failure as it is to visit a museum of science. And in case you're wondering, there is a museum of failure. It's in Sweden. So the next time you're visiting, please go have a look. Now, this brings me to an important point and an important trend that we've seen. We've considered class toppers to be successful and people with the lowest marks to be unsuccessful. We've considered people with better college degrees successful and people who don't go to college as unsuccessful. We've considered people who go to who learn from internships and who learn from the best as successful, and then we call people who go to vocational centers as unsuccessful. Here's the problem. None of these people are unsuccessful. In fact, in Germany, 60% of the population goes through some kind of an apprenticeship program. In the USA, this number is a little less than 5%. In India, this number is unheard of. Probably in the unorganized sector, this number, you might come across this number. Students, especially students my age and your age, about 17, 16 years old, who could be going to college, work as tea vendors, work in retail stores. And this is some form of a learning. But imagine you and me in the same situation. Imagine taking a gap year after school and telling your parents, oh, I'm going to work as a retail store employee. They tell you your career was ruined. But that's the thing that we need to change. New forms of learning, new forms of education are going to drive economic growth. And if we want to change the way we see the world, we need to change this exact number. We need to change the kind of work that we do. Apprenticeships, internships, job opportunities at our age instead of later on in life. So what does that tell me? It tells me that college isn't a recruitment firm. Just because you go to a college, it doesn't mean you're guaranteed a job. Every job needs to be worked upon. Every job requires your skills. So we need to stop believing in the assumption that going to college will be like approaching a recruitment firm. We're guaranteed a job. The number on screen is the number of people who go to college who eventually drop out. 50%. The unemployment rate for college graduates today, and underemployment rate actually, is 44%. The average student debt for a student in the USA is $30,000. So really, the only thing a college education is guaranteeing you is perhaps a skyrocketing student debt and a good probability of being underemployed. I'm just saying. So the next point is that college shouldn't be looked at as term insurance. You cannot buy it and purchase it at one point, and it's not going to last you a lifetime. Colleges are not going to have your back for a lifetime. Think of it more as car insurance. You'll purchase it once, and eventually your degree will lose value like your car insurance will expire. So take everything you do with a pinch of salt. So you're probably wondering what the two pictures have to do with any of us right now. The truth is that the reason that we've believed in many of the things that I've talked about, all these assumptions that we've been making for the longest time, is because of a simple phenomenon: conditioning. The reason that we wake up in the morning, eat 3 meals a day, go to school in the morning, and then go to college after we finish school education is all thanks to this phenomenon, conditioning. And the scientist, the physiologist actually who came up with this was a Russian, and he came up with this experiment and he worked with it on his dog. The dog's name was Circa. So what he noticed was that Circa salivated every single time it saw food around it, right? But after in a couple of attempts and as part of the experiment, they realized that it started salivating even if there wasn't any food around. What the dog was actually reacting to were the lab coats worn by the lab technicians who used to come in with the food. And when they realized this, they realized that it was having the same reaction to the lab coat as it typically did to the food. Now, me, you, and Circa have a lot in common. not just about conditioning, but also our reaction to food. We've come to believe that the best colleges produce the best people. But we fail to notice sometimes that not all the successful people come from great colleges. We have to realize that while we like to believe that the best doctors come from the best med schools, the best lawyers come from the best law schools, the best engineers come from the best engineering schools, and the best entrepreneurs drop out of these schools, we have to notice that this shouldn't be taken up as a trend. In fact, it's a learning for each one of us. Because of these things that we've come to believe, we work in a fashion that's detrimental to our success. We study subjects we don't enjoy to get into colleges we're not passionate about, to get jobs we don't love. And then we ask ourselves why we're failures in life. We need to change our perspective. College is not equal to success. So we need to find out how to make ourselves successful without relying and without being dependent on this institution called college. Look at the people on screen. If you want to be the next Bill Gates, the next Mark Zuckerberg, the next Oprah Winfrey, or the next Matt Damon, and if you manage to get into those top 10% and the most selective universities, then you have to ask yourself a very important question. And the question is really, really simple. Will you go to college and will you change the face of this college? Or will you go to college and let the college change your face? Thank you very much.